Gracias por estar aquí tan puntuals. Hello, good morning. Thank you for being so punctual. As you know, and we've told you, this is the inaugural session of the doctoral program offered by the Department of Translation and Linguistic Sciences. We have a very special situation, as we all know, with the pandemic, so that today we are in this room complying with all the requirements that we've been given by the health authorities, but some people are not with us. So this session is going to be offered in streaming, and this is why there is a lot of technical compliances that we need to follow, okay? In principle, we're all going to be operating very near the screen so that the PowerPoints that you're going to be seeing are visible. Yeah? But let's just start before the presentations from the 10, although you will hear one group is not with us. Unfortunately, this is why we changed the starting time. The 9 research groups in the department are going to be explaining to you their activities. We want to give you a few words, opening words, and I'm very pleased to introduce you to the head of department. Some of you know her very well, but she has been so kind to be with us today, albeit it requires efforts to give you some opening words and a welcome from the department. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. PérezVidal. Okay. Benvinguts, gràcies per ser aquí, els que sou a Barcelona. And welcome also those who are watching us from every corner of the world. My name is Anna Espunya. I'm the head of the department. And I'm also a professor here. The role of the department is to foster a research environment through basically 3 elements. One is providing infrastructure. The second is providing financial aid for meaningful research activities. And the third is allocating human resources, such as administrative resources and also advisory resources. PhD students are very important to us. You come with fresh ideas, with fresh research questions requiring methodological answers. And that is a source of, new blood to us and constant, keeping up to date. Among the academic advisory resources that we allocate are our program coordinator, Dr. PérezVidal, and also the figure of an academic advisor. We call them Tutor, and today with us is Dr. Mercè, Lorente. As a head of department, I want to stress out that we are a small university, a public university in Catalonia, which means that we have to do a lot with very little. And I'm very proud of what we have achieved through our doctoral program, which has been running now for, almost since the department was first designated, 1996. So I wish you a very productive stay with us. And I hope that this will be the beginning of a very, let's say, satisfying research career for you guys. And I hope that, maybe in the future we can see you back with us doing research in a more, let's say, mature or professional way. But meanwhile, my office is 309 in building 52. I'm the person who's responsible for how things go in the department. If you ever need to come and see me, please make an appointment. Okay, and I'll now give the floor to Dr. PérezVidal. Okay. Thank you.
So here is me, it's my turn, and then you will hear Dr. Lorente, and then we will start with the presentations. I would like to welcome Dr. Quer, who is going to be the first presenter with the GLIF group. Thank you very much for joining us today. Now, we've met already, we've talked, some of you know me personally, having been students here. But what we've talked during the tutorials was fairly practical. We wanted to give you an overview of what you are supposed to do when being on a doctoral program. However, for now, I was thinking, you know, what could be most useful that I haven't been able to tell you yet? And here is where I came up with a decalogue. So 10 ideas relates to abilities that I think we on the program would like you to have at the end of the program, and we will definitely help you develop while you're on the program. Okay, so 10. I haven't prepared the PowerPoint because you're going to see fantastic PowerPoints through the presentations that will start after our sort of opening words. But let me give them to you, and perhaps you want to write them. So 10 ideas. And I group them into 3 groups. So there are ideas or abilities, okay? Strategic, scientific, academic, 3 items in each of them, and then one final 10th general ability, which I think is key. Well, I think, we all think, those who have been in research for a while, right? Now, strategic abilities. It is very good to have a sense of purpose, to be practical, academically speaking, in a way. And third, to be very good with paperwork and know that the best way to deal with paperwork is meet deadlines. So let me explain a little bit each of them. So it is very good to have a sense of purpose. You are here and you know why, otherwise you wouldn't be here. But let me put it this way. Sometimes the first idea, the initial idea to join a doctoral program needs to be modeled and needs to be sort of clarified, more on focus, let's put it like that. For some people this may not be the case, but for many it may be the case. So try and at any moment be very clear why you're here, why you're conducting a PhD, okay? And sense of practicality, be practical also. Be very realistic. That reason for doing a PhD, try and see how practical it is, and maybe you adapt your purpose to what you see that is happening in the world, because you will learn a lot about the world, and that will be my 10th ability, okay? So sense of purpose, be practical, and then definitely your life will be much easier, and our life, and in particular the Secretary's Office life, if any little bureaucratic step that you need to take at different stages during these 3 years, you are very good at meeting the deadlines. I know you've done it with your registration these days. You had 5 days and you've done it. But believe me, there is a handful of people who haven't registered. Can you imagine? And they haven't said anything. And we don't know what happens with them. And then the Secretary Office spends hours trying to contact them. Because we will, in spite of you not meeting deadlines, always help you, right? And there are people who don't meet deadlines. But if you meet them, it will be so much easier for everybody, and you will feel under much less stress. So that's the third element there in strategic abilities. Let me get on with the scientific abilities, perhaps the most academic ones in a way. Okay, when you conduct a PhD, you're expected to be original and innovative in the topic you choose. Very obvious. You're not expected to do something that has already been done, of course. But this you must bear in mind. So it's got to be original and innovative. And when I say innovative, I link it to the third element, to the third feature here. For that, you want to use technologies. Because these days, whatever you do, even if you do literature, things that may seem to be a little bit far away from technology, just go and see what technological developments can do for you, or what you can do for technological developments, whether what you're researching has anything to do with any advance in technology, right? So the third one here in this group would be make sure that what you're going to be doing makes a contribution to society and makes the world a better world. Now, these are very grand words. In more technical terms, one could say, try and make your research applied. Applied means that you can transfer the knowledge you obtain through all you do over these 3 or 4 years to societal needs. And whatever you do, literature, computational linguistics, formal linguistics, that can be done. And this is what will get you more in tune with possibilities for a future professional career that uses your PhD, okay? So the practicality of it, okay? So I finished with the second group. I covered strategic abilities, scientific abilities. Now, I don't know how to call these, but academic. Let me be more like down to the ground. So you need to be very good, let's put it like at the 4 skills when we use language. First of all, you need to be good at listening. And when I'm saying listening, I mean go around and listen to anything you can. And that I link, remember when we told you you're expected to follow activities, to attend seminars, to see anything that is available, in particular at our university, but not only, other universities in Catalonia, any seminar conducted worldwide that can be accessed through streaming, do that and listen to what people tell you, not only in your area, in other areas. Okay, you need to be good at reading, of course. Before you start, you embark on your own theme, you need to know, I mean, this is also very grand, but I would say everything that has been done before, yes, in a way, yeah? So you need to know that then you're doing something, remember, original. So you need to know what has been done before. And of course, your PhD is going to be written, so you need to be good at writing, yeah? And that we are going to help you develop, definitely, not only writing the final text, whether as a conventional thesis or as a compilation of different research articles, but you're going to be asked to do posters. Remember, you're going to have a poster session in next year. You need to write abstracts if you want to apply for conferences to present your research. So writing is going to be a fundamental ability, or skill rather, because it boils down to a language skill, that you need to develop while you're here. Not only in English, of course, I'm using English because some of our students come from very far away and may not be competent at Spanish, but we encourage you to write theses in other languages. There's no problem, Spanish, Catalan, and you're most welcome. And there are enormous opportunities if you write theses in Catalan, and special prizes and special grants, in a sense. So, I mean, you can approach your tutor and she knows everything about it, because her field of expertise is through Catalan, okay? So I've covered the 9 features, the strategic, the scientific, the academic, and then the 10th one that stands on its own, but opens enormous windows of opportunities, network. This is all about networking, because through networking, you reach and people reach to you. You reach out and people reach out to you. And networking starts here, so you're going to have the entire morning to talk to each other here. You learn a lot. You're going to have professors explaining their research, their stuff, and they're going to stick around for coffee breaks and talk to them, ask questions during the sessions. Don't shut away during your doctoral program. And there you have the other fundamental skill, which is communication strategies, oral communication strategies, that you definitely need to develop while you're on a PhD program, because you are expected to reach out. There's no use in doing your little study in your own little room, just talking to your supervisor. This is no longer the way we conduct research, and this is why we've asked you to feel part of your research group, the research group where your supervisor works, and this is why today we offer these presentations, for you to know who's there, for you to also think that you can talk to other experts in the department besides your own supervisor or supervisors. This is absolutely common practice. Of course, discuss that with your supervisor, but say, look, there's this professor who does something in pragmatics, and this may help me. Can I just ask to go by his or her office and have a talk to this person, saying that, you know, we discuss it with you, your supervisor. But do that. Take advantage of everything this department offers you. Okay? So these are my decalogue. I hope it's useful. It's in a sense practical, but with a vision. And let me just finish with an idea that was put forward on a seminar held by the head of the doctoral school at this university, where she invited different enterprises in Barcelona to talk to us about how they thought that PhDs should be useful for enterprises and businesses, not only for academia. We don't want inbreeding research. As I said, we want research that helps society and makes this world a better world. And you know what this head of the enterprise said? Something so simple. I know it's someone from outside academia, but this person said, look, whenever I have someone working for me who has a PhD, what I know is that instead of sometimes generating problems, they always solve problems. They are used to solve problems. Technical problems, social problems, human problems. They know that life is about solving problems, not generating problems. And I would like to finish with this. Thank you very much, and we hope to help you do all these things with us while you're here. Okay? And let me hand the floor over to Mercè.
Hola, buenos días a todos. Buenos días o buenas noches a los que nos están viendo desde el streaming. Ahora, muy rápidamente, voy a anunciaros lo que ya tenéis por escrito. En la carpeta encontraréis el programa que ya os mandamos actualizado, donde veréis que se presentan todos los grupos del departamento. Lamentablemente hay un grupo, el grupo LLENGUATGE, de Language Acquisition, que no podrá estar hoy aquí por problemas de horarios y de calendario. Tenían unas tesis. Y empezaremos con el grupo de lingüística formal, que es un grupo grande, con bastantes personas, que nos presentará el doctor Quer. Después haremos una pausa. En esta pausa breve, simplemente para estirar las piernas, abrir las ventanas, estar lo más cómodos posibles. A continuación presentará el grupo de prosodia la profesora Prieto, que vendrá un poco más tarde. A continuación, una persona del grupo que sustituirá a la doctora Boleda presentará el grupo COL, que es un grupo de lingüística computacional. Ella está enferma hoy y precisamente por esto la sustituirán. Y entonces haremos la pausa más larga. La pausa más larga, tenéis en la carpeta una hoja de color amarillo, que es un ticket para ir a la cafetería. Y por tanto podéis sustituir este ticket por la consumición, que como os pone aquí, tenéis una bebida o un pequeño bocado para poder mantenernos bien toda la mañana. Este desayuno nos lo ofrece Espunya, la directora del departamento, para todos los que estamos aquí. Lamentablemente, los que estáis en streaming no podrá ser, nos acompañáis con vuestro café. A continuación presentaremos dos grupos más, el grupo IULATERM, que lo haré yo misma, Y a continuación el grupo Infolex de lexicografía, que lo presentará el doctor Tourné. Haremos otra pausa y luego vendrá el grupo de recepción literaria, de recepción de la traducción. Y a continuación el grupo GEDIT, que es el grupo de discurso y traducción, que también es un grupo muy numeroso. A continuación haremos otra breve pausa para ventilar la sala y a continuación vendrá el doctor Cassany para presentar el grupo de enseñanza y aprendizaje de lenguas. Y por último, el profesor Hinzen presentará su grupo de gramática y cognición. Y luego al final haremos un poco el cierre de la sesión. Bueno, simplemente para que veáis cómo nos organizamos, veréis a lo largo de las presentaciones que hay grupos más grandes, grupos más pequeños, pero todos tienen unas líneas muy definidas. Las líneas siempre se tocan, es decir, que en realidad las fronteras no son nunca claras. Hay grupos que trabajan en tecnología desde el léxico, es decir, la tecnología ahora en estos momentos está presente en muchos de los grupos. Pero no solo esto, es importante que veáis que tenemos grupos que se dedican a la lingüística teórica, lingüística formal, etcétera, y luego tenemos grupos muy aplicados que se dedican no solo al desarrollo teórico y metodológico, sino también a realizar aplicaciones concretas que se van a la industria o a otras instituciones. Es importante que visualicéis un poco el panorama. El programa de doctorado no quiere que solo os quedéis en vuestro grupo, en vuestra línea, en vuestro proyecto, sino que tengáis también una visión amplia de las conexiones que hay entre todas las líneas de investigación para el futuro. ¿De acuerdo? Pues nada, que tengáis muy buena jornada y creo que ya vamos con tiempo ya vamos un poco tarde incluso para empezar. Y le doy la palabra al doctor Quer. Bienvenidos a todos.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Quer, and I'm the coordinator of one of the groups that we presented today. That is the Bruta Lingüística Formal Linguistics Group. And it's a bit of a challenge to explain what we do and who we are in 10 minutes, but I'll try to keep to the time because in the sake of your patience in the program. This is an old picture of us, and some people are here, some other people have joined. But anyway, it gives you an idea of the amount of people that make the group. Despite the title, the group carries out quite different types of research. And this is a general outline. Maybe the most obvious one is the study of linguistic theory, grounded in formal modeling of natural language data. So maybe that's what comes to your mind, excuse me, when you think of formal linguistics. So typical areas are grammatical areas like syntax, semantics, morphology, but always dealing with the modeling of natural language data. Also in the group we have an important research line dealing with cross-linguistic variation and the formal representation of that variation, not only descriptive, thus. Also socio-linguistic variation, language content, and grammatical change. Maybe you expect a little less of this in a group which is called formal linguistics, but that's there. And also an important line is dynamic representation of meaning. And we'll see who's leading these lines. We also carry out research on experimental analysis and computation implementation as validation of theoretical models. So it's not only theory, there's also this connection to, let's say, the experimental side, let's say. The empirical coverage is also important because we are also, we are middle-sized group, but we are very diverse, as I said, also in terms of empirical coverage. So we cover both spoken and sign languages. I'll tell you a little bit more about the sign language part. And as you've seen, we cover synchronic and diachronic research. And the methods are also diverse. So some people do corpus analysis, use computational methods. Some other people use more traditional approaches like elicitation, data elicitation, but also experimental methods. So rather.
You have until 10.
So, thought it was only 10 minutes.
Sí.
Ah, okay.
No, una miqueta més perquè hem començat més tard.
Okay.
Però em queden 10, 15.
I was counting on 10 minutes, but
Mercè,
No, it's
how many
fine.
minutes? 15? No? Just for you two. Li queden 15?
Sí, és que ell
Yeah,
ha començat
15,
més
so
tard.
you can-
Començat més
okay.
tard.
I mean, if I finish early, it will be good for the
For the
for the
questions. So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you again briefly. I mean, I'm going to present you the, let's say, the senior researchers of the group and what their research lines are, with some illustrations of the actual research projects that they carry out. Some of them are PhD projects, like the ones that you'll be carrying out. So, first of all, Luis Magnelli and Jose Maria Fontana, they work mostly on these two areas, in these three main areas: lexical compositional semantics interface, let's say in a more traditional formal semantics approach. Syntactic and semantic change, that's the area of Jose Maria Fontana. The subtopics you find here are topics that are carried out as PhD projects, but not only. And then the third one is a broader one, a more general one, is the theory of natural language meaning, connecting referential conceptual approaches to meaning, which is a rather new line within the group, new already for a couple of years, and the role of type token distinction in theories of meaning. Another subset of research topics is carried out by Laia Mayol and Enric Vallduví. And the description of what they do is actually in this first bullet. They study meaning in context, so very important information structure and discourse structure from a formal perspective, reference accessibility and choice of referential expressions, meaning types and linguistic inference. Also context modeling, so you see that there is a strong pragmatic semantic approach to the study of language. So, but also again with the experimental component, with this let's say, dominating approach in formal pragmatics now, which is experimental pragmatics, introducing experimental work in the study of meaning, and the structural correlates of context-sensitive meaning, like word order, intonation, and morphology, but also affective meaning. So it is, let's say, a selection of the topics that they deal with. And then we have would say, a subunit, or what we call a lab, LSC lab, the Catalan Sign Language Lab, led by me and with my colleague Gemma Barberà. And for some years now, we've been doing grammatical description and formal analysis of sign languages, basically morphosyntax, semantics, and discourse. And here you have some of the topics that, again, have taken the shape of a PhD project, from relative clauses in Catalan sign language, double-edged questions, focus, coordinating and gapping, etc. And also an important, let's say, direction of our research is not only grammatical description, as we said, and theoretical analysis, but also the effects of language modality on language structure. So how the fact that some languages are in a different modality affect or contribute to the particular expression and structure of some languages. So how the use of a space plays a role in some language reference, the role of nominal marking, which is a particular area within the grammars of some languages, anaphora in sign discourse, and pronominal reference. Then we also have Alex Alsina, who is a specialist, a leading researcher in this particular model, which is lexical functional grammar. And he focuses on syntactic analysis within this particular model. The topics he and his students have worked on are agreement in languages like Serbo-Croatian, etc., plain Cree, also unbounded dependencies, morphological and syntactic status of clitics in Romance, in particular in Catalan. This is work by Alsina himself. Also how argument realization takes place, and copular inversion. As I said, within this model, LFG, lexical functional grammar. And finally, we have Martina Vilsko, who is also an ICREA research professor like me, who joined the group last year. And this is her description of what she's doing currently. So she deals with a range of variation of human language in traditional domains of grammar, the ones that we know about, so syntax, semantics, basically, and pragmatics. But also she has let's say, a new look on grammar, which introduces interactional speech, that is basically discourse marker, okay? From a formal perspective, formal syntactic perspective, mostly. And lastly, in collaboration also with GRAEL, the group on grammar and cognition, she's also dealing with research in clinical speech, what happens to language when cognition is impaired. So here you see again connection with another group. This is a very fast, a very simplified version of what we do. We have collaborations with other groups within URLing. I don't know, actually there will be no presentation on UR. Okay. So URLing is Unitat de Recerca en Lingüística. It's a macro group that an umbrella group that embraces all the research groups that deal with linguistics from different perspectives, okay? And once in a while, we have also some events that bring together all the groups, okay? And you are advised to attend those events, like a lecture or a mini course or something like this. We also collaborate with other teams outside Catalonia, excuse me, mainly European, yeah, often through competitive projects. So, I don't know whether, well, oh, no. Okay, so this was a network, a Spanish network of research on meaning, actually, on semantics and pragmatics. RESP is a yearly event so far for PhD students, actually, who are working in semantics and pragmatics, and takes place here in Catalonia. It's organized by us. ScienceHub, which is a European project, a Horizon 2020 project, which finished this year, and which dealt with different aspects of the grammars, and not only of different languages in Europe. And some others that I will not list here. What do we do with our research? Well, as you heard in the introduction, we need to interact between us, and one ideal and basic activity that we have is this weekly colloquium, the Glyph seminar, which includes talks, but also training sessions for grad students once in a while on particular abilities like how to set up a poster, how to prepare an article for publication, how to apply for jobs, for instance. And you're most welcome to attend those events as well. And once in a while, we also have reading group sessions, like more directed on, and the students basically say, we want to read about this, or we suggest that students read a particular text, and we discuss it with seniors and junior researchers. We also organize conferences and workshops, so far on-site, and given the circumstances, also online. The last one was Consol, which is a student conference, which has a long tradition in Europe, and it took place here in Barcelona. And also, once in a while, we also organize short courses on a particular topic. Let's say we invite an expert on a particular topic we want to learn about, and this is offered basically to students, but also it's also attended by seniors, because we normally function together. And last but not least, we also organize a yearly calçotada. And for those of you who don't know what a calçotada is, you'll hear about, but it's basically cooking some kind of sweet onions on the fire outside and eating other things apart from the onions, but it's actually the event of cooking this thing and going somewhere all together. And till we run into Corona, We used to have weekly happy hours. The students used to organize weekly happy hours on Fridays mostly, to have a drink, to interact. It wasn't meant only for GLIF students. Actually, it was rather mingled. But I don't know exactly what the status is of the happy hours. And I encourage you to, well, I don't know, to push for it again to the extent that the situation allows for it. Because, of course, doing a PhD is more than just studying and doing hard research work, okay? So actually what Dr. Pérez mentioned before, it's everything around it. And this was basically it. Don't be scared by the trees and come enjoy the language forest. I mean, the group is not huge, and you see that it's already quite diverse, and you'll see even more diversity through the presentations this morning. And even if you are working on in your PhD project, which is very focused, it's on a very specific topic, take advantage of the opportunity you have being here and enriching your background in linguistics. You will become linguists of one sort or the other, but don't close your horizon only to your group, and just have a look at other things, very interesting people who come here or who give lectures, and other people in other groups. Okay, so have a successful and enjoyable time here, and see you around. That was it.
Perhaps it would be interesting to clarify URLIN. So, Unitat de Recerca en Lingüística, a linguistic unit. The government, the Catalan government allowed scientists to come together as research groups. This is what you're going to be seeing today. So you've seen one research group. There was a little bit of funding behind it, but it also encouraged research groups that were doing work which had something in common to then come together at a higher stage and organize units. You could call them labs, perhaps, laboratories or whatever. Names don't matter. But this is what happens with the URLIN. It includes the three first groups you're going to be hearing about this morning, so GLIF, GREP, and Cohort. It also includes Alencam, which unfortunately cannot be here with us today in terms of the leader of the group presenting the work. I'm a member of Alencam, but this was not, the idea that I would be presenting, but rather the leader who cannot be here. Okay? So this is URLIN. There is no other unit called UNIT, but yet we have another setup, which is an institute. And these are the two groups following the presentations by URLIN. Institut Universitari, so IULA, of Applied Linguistics, de Lingüística Aplicada. And it includes two very powerful groups on lexis, terminology, and computational linguistics and lexis. And those are the two groups that you will hear after that. Okay, so in a sense that systematizes a bit what's going on at the department. And that you have the remaining groups that you will hear about in the morning, which come at the end, towards the end. Okay? And I think that I would like to thank Dr. Quer for his presentation. It was exactly what we needed for the students. A little bit of academia and a little bit of what surrounds it. And I think it's time for a coffee break. And I would like to say a few words for those of us, those of you who are in streaming. We hope the technicalities work well, and we would like to hear from you. Please send us an email message if there are any problems, or even to confirm that everything is going fine, because now we're going for a break. And if there is any problem, any issue, we can solve it now in the forthcoming 15 minutes. So I will be on the alert. Mercè, have we given them at least your email account? They would have your email account so that they could be writing to you. Yes? See? Okay. So please let us know whether the streaming is going well. And as Mercè said, you cannot join us for the break, but we think of you. Okay. Fine, so we can stretch our legs.
Okay, thanks to the two directors. I'm just going to take out the, you gave me permission because there's a...
introduce you to Dr. Pilar.
Thanks very much
Hey,
to the doctoral directors, and I'm really pleased to be here. I see some known faces from the master's program. I also see Julia from our group, and I guess also half of you are also on streaming, so welcome. And I'm here to present my group, which is the Prosodic Studies group, and to explain a little bit what we do, what our research goals are, what our projects are, and the methods we use, and also to invite you finally to attend our seminars. We normally organize like one seminar per month, or one or two, so you can go to our webpage and check. Let me just, well, this is already an old picture because Ingrid here defended her thesis in July, and then Julia is coming, so the picture. Okay, our goals are basically, as the title of our group says, we look at prosody, mainly, the prosody of language, in relation to gesture too, because over the years, we started only analyzing prosody, and over the years we saw that gesture goes with prosody a lot, right? So many prosodic movements that go up are related to hand movements, and we started to look at them. So our goal is to look at the role of prosody and co-speech gestures many times together in human communication, as well as in language learning and language processing patterns. General questions that we try to answer, and these overarch mainly many of our projects, is to try to understand the semantic relationship between prosody, gesture, and language and speech. Also, we want to understand the patterns of not only semantic alignment, but also phonological alignment and phonetic alignment. So they normally go together, and we want to understand also phonetically the patterns of alignment between the two. Now, many of us are involved in relation to these two questions, are involved in developing a labeling manual that includes not only prosody, because what we see in labeling manuals is that they either focus on prosody, they either focus on gesture or on semantic areas. So we want to have something that would work. We have right now two databases, English and French TED Talks, and also narrative speech from development. And as you see, Julia has already started working already on this project. Okay, and what we're going to do now is basically focus on our research project right now, which is funded by the Madrid and a bit of Recercaxa. And this is on trying to understand what is the role of prosody and gesture in language learning and different areas. And I'm going to just go over quickly some of the projects we have right now. And, you know, if they overlap with your projects or you are interested, sometimes we organize seminars related to this project, so you are invited to come. Okay, the general goal of the project is to assess the role of embodiment, what we call embodiment, multimodality, prosody, gesture. So not just what we say, but how we say it. That's our goal. For language learning, what is the gain that you obtain from these features to boost and to train faster language learning patterns? This is the main issue. The motivation, for at least for the acquisition part, comes from a general knowledge that co-speech they basically are boosters of language learning, both in children and in adults. So if you go to, for example, Golden Meadows Lab, they have lots of, language processing. one basic thing that is quite established in the field. Then we have of co-speech gestures acting precursors of a language. Is a key behavior in children in order to predict their language behavior later on, right? But we want to, but on later development, not only looking at pointing gestures, but a variety of gestures, what we call pragmatic and beat gestures, and they have been, in the field. Okay, so two of our projects relate to this research question, which is how multi-path socio-pragmatic and narrative is in childhood, like a step forward from what we tend to know about co-speech gestures, and not only including co-speech gestures, also prosody. That's the main issue in these two projects that I'm going to explain. One of them is projects is led by Pronina Marussia. She came to the program like 2.5 years ago with an FI grant, and is multimodal trainings in children, 3 to 5 year olds, for boosting socio-pragmatic abilities. So our goal is to detect, for example, theory of mind, what others think, what others are, right? And these are, well, actually, when we went to schools, they were really interested in trying to train this ability in preschoolers. So we had, right now we have a problem with getting some data with because we're having a longitudinal study. But, well, it seems that they're going to let us go back to the school again. Let's see if the situation is fine. Okay, so briefly, how is the procedure for this project? We have, and for many of our projects, they are training studies, and what we do is we have a pretest. Does this work? I don't know. Well, we have a pretest set of measures, and all of individual measures that could affect learning. We have a theory of mind measures, emotion detection measures, socio-pragmatic tests, mental verb comprehension. This is to assess a little bit pragmatic knowledge. And then we do a training, 4 weeks training, 2 sessions. Control group basically draws on, they see a set of stories, basically, on emotions and how the characters of the stories feel like. And here, after they see the stories, they basically draw some of the characters. In here, after seeing the stories, they talk with the experimenter basically about the feelings and emotions of the characters. And here they talk about the feelings and emotion of the characters, but including a lot of recreation and embodiment. Okay, so these studies basically to see a potential difference. Well, we basically seek a big difference between these two. How conversational training, focusing on emotions, can boost your pragmatic knowledge, but also the multimodal, effects. What we saw is that even though I'm not showing results here, but I want to tell you at least because we got the results not so long ago. Here we have there's a big statistical difference between these and these two, but no statistical difference between these two, even though effect sizes are much higher for multimodal. This means that perhaps longer trainings or something would have a more effect. But we didn't find it. But still, it's a nice training. Okay, Ingrid, she just defended her thesis in July, beginning of July. And yeah, in her thesis, she basically analyzes the role of modality on improving narrative abilities. And narrative abilities in children are very, very important because they are basically predictors of academic performance, for example, right? And also So by many speech therapists, narratives are the key score for evaluating language at these ages, right? 5 to 8 year olds. So, and she found really, really nice results on this. I mean, with short trainings, with gestures, she, at post-test, it was immediate post-test, not very delayed post-test, she obtained very nice differences between the multimodal group and the non-multimodal group. So that was a very nice thesis. She's now working in Girona. Okay, now we move a little bit. These are the projects related to L1. We have some projects related to the acquisition of second language, L2. And again, the same question, multimodal to learn pronunciation. And since we are more interested in phonology, we look more at pronunciation. So Patrick, and you know him from the labeling project. He's involved not only in the labeling project, but also here. He has several studies related to this research question. Is multimodal training equally effective on an L1 or an L2? Our initial hypothesis was that probably we would be more effective than an L1. We're finding exactly this. This is very interesting. Yes, I'm doing fine. And I just want to tell you that he's analyzing not only behavioral data, but also neurophysiological data. This is the only study we're running right now on neurophysiological data in collaboration with people at the Cognition Lab. Okay, then we focus on training and how GEDIT can improve pronunciation training. We believe that one of the most important things for pronunciation is to learn the prosodic patterns, the rhythmic patterns of the language. And one way to get to the rhythmic patterns is to focus on rhythmic training, like, for example, or melodic rhythmic training. These actually, we've been running many experiments on this, and they always point to the same direction. They help, like embodying your help in getting the target rhythm of the L2 language. There are many things that need to be studied here, distances between languages, the rhythmic patterns, etc. Right? But yeah, I mean, the results are quite nice in here. Okay, we're also looking not only at the prosodic level, but also at the segmental level, looking at how we can learn specific consonants, specific vowels using the tongue are involved on this, and they have very nice results at the moment on the use, for example, of this gesture, this plosive gesture, to learn aspiration in a second language. But we work quite a lot on very controlled populations. And we're moving much more to classroom settings, and we believe that this is having more people and having classroom trainings can have more strength here. So we're moving slowly. Well, we've run already 2 classroom experiments, but right now with the COVID, it's not that easy. So that's how we have it. Then just mentioning it that we have some support from the Recercaixa project to look at how multimodal boost, in general, oral presentation abilities in secondary school students. So normally the training of speaking in public is not very much trained, and we believe that there are issues like virtual reality in her case, or having embodied trainings can help boost these. And she collected, well, she was lucky last time because she actually finished collecting data when the alarm state came on, just on the same day. So she was, because anything in between would have been just data to be thrown, right? So that's why she's goods. Podeu venir a qualsevol seminary. Normally they are in English. Really welcome, and I hope you really have a nice year and that the virus situation keeps improving, hopefully. Okay, so thanks a lot.
We now move on to the Cohort group, led by Dr. Gemma Boleda. Gemma Boleda hasn't been able to be here with us. So we have... yes, so it's Matthijs, you have to tell us how to pronounce it, perhaps?
Yes, my name is Matthijs Westera.
Okay. Would you like to hold this microphone, or would you rather have...
Is it, well, this one is fine. Sure.
Yeah, sure, I just print it. Okay. And you have to move in this bit, because we are streaming. Yes.
All right, so sorry on behalf of Gemma that she can't be here. She would have loved to, but she's currently on sick leave. This is us. This is the Cohort group, Computational Linguistics and Linguistic Theory. And I'm just going to show you faces and tell you some first names to make it a bit personal, but if you really want to know who they are, look on the website. Well, I'll stick with the PhD. So that is Laura, Jonuts, Lucas, Roberto, Sheshen, and Eleonora. And they're kind of, on the left, they are more senior, and on the right, they are just starting, like Eleonora. Is she here, actually? No. I think she's currently looking for a place to live in Barcelona, and then she's starting her PhD. The two most senior researchers are Gemma Boleda and Marco Baroni. And in what follows, I'm just going to give you some examples of the research we do. Oh yeah, first a more general overview. Have a look at the website, contact us, ask us what we're doing, and if you find it interesting, maybe we can collaborate in some way. We organize some events. They're not regular at the moment. We used to have around one seminar every month or so. And they're open to everybody, and they will be announced through the website. The main goal of the Computational Linguistics and Linguistic Theory Research Group is to understand how language works. And there's a typo, but that's okay, a typo in the crucial word that defines us all. We use computational linguistics techniques as a research method, techniques from artificial intelligence, so that includes deep learning, but also the more traditional, shallow machine learning. We also look for the interface with formal linguistics, especially formal semantics and pragmatics, and a bit of syntax. And we are inspired by cognitive science and also try to find the link there. Here are some topics. Most of us are working on several topics, but these are, I believe these capture kind of the main topics at the moment. Semantics and pragmatics, grounding language in vision, reference, the way we can refer linguistically to objects, entity representations in a neural network memory. So how does a neural network build up, when it's processing text, how does it build up representations of the entities to which the text is referring? Some of us are working on language evolution, or the evolution of the language faculty, and some of us are working on generalization and compositionality in language acquisition. I've never presented live before, and now I notice my thingy keeps slipping. And we're interested in the abilities of artificial neural networks in acquiring generalization and compositionality, but we think they're interesting primarily because these neural networks are like very general learning mechanisms. And if we understand how this very general learning mechanism can acquire something about language, maybe that can inform our theories about how humans do it with this lump of wet stuff in our heads. I'm just going to go through 5 or 6 examples, I believe. give me the DEX. This is work by Christina, who was with us until last year, and Thomas, who is a postdoc, who's now in the group, and Gemma. And what happens if you ask, mostly a child, but maybe adults too, give me the DEX? Which object will they give you? This one, right? And that's because if there's an unknown word, that's probably because we haven't seen the object yet, because it's an unknown object. So we make this mapping between an unknown word and an unknown object. And the question that these smart people in the corner are looking at is, why does it work this way? Why do we make this connection between the word and that new object? Is it a bias that plays a role in word acquisition? Or is it pragmatic reasoning? Something like, well, if they had wanted to refer to this, they would have used the more typical word cup. They didn't, so they must have meant this. That's a sort of real-time pragmatic reasoning as opposed to something that happens more slowly through acquisition. And they're using neural networks as a sort of toy human to play around with. And the conclusion from their neural network experiments is that it could be either of these. So both of these mechanisms, when you implement them in a computer model, they could result in this behavior. And they're running more sophisticated experiments now to see what the differences are between these two pathways to this behavior. Here's a publication if you're interested. Next project, visual object naming. And this is from Karina, who was also here until last year. She was a postdoc. Zina, who is somewhere else. Gemma and me and Eleonora, the new PhD, will be working on this as well. The idea is that when you want to name an object in an image or when you want to refer to it, you can use many different words. And Karina ran an experiment, a large-scale crowdsourcing experiment, which resulted in, for instance, 27 people calling this a bird and 8 people calling this a duck, whereas here, 33 people calling it a duck and only 3 calling it a bird. And then there was one idiot who called it a chicken. And I mean, this was a very large-scale experiment with tens of thousands of images and names. And it marks a change compared to existing work, which has typically assumed that there's going to be just one name for each object. So this is really about naming variation. And in the most recent paper, I joined the crowd. I was a bit late to the project. We look at how the mistakes that artificial intelligence models make when they're trying to name objects in images, and they're already very good at it. And we look at whether the mistakes that these artificial intelligence models make are similar to the mistakes that humans make. And the conclusion is, by and large, they make quite similar mistakes to us, like misidentifying an object or naming the wrong object that's not in the red rectangle. But there is some variation between domains. So computers still confuse clothing and types of humans very much, whereas that's something that humans are very good at distinguishing, like sweater versus t-shirt. But then computers may be better at animals or something, I'm not sure. Anyway, next example. Referring expression choice and predictability, and this is mainly the project of 2 PhD students, Shishan and Laura. The hypothesis is that pronouns in English and across languages where they have pronouns are used for more predictable reference than more complete noun phrases like a determiner with a noun or with an adjective in between. This is quite intuitive, right? If you already know who I'm going to talk about, I can just say he or she or they. And the research method that we're exploring at the moment is to use an AI model that can do co-reference resolution. So if you give it a text, it knows which words co-refer to the same object. To use that to estimate this notion of how predictable was the entity being referred to. Let me give a more concrete example. Here's a sentence. Sue was at the protest with Bill and his daughter. She called me later. Who does she refer to? Well, it could be daughter, it could be his, but that's a bit weird. because then the genders misalign. Can it be Bill? Also not very likely. Could it be Sue? That's quite likely again. And so a computer model that can do coreference will assign different probabilities to these different possible antecedents. So this model considers Sue to be by far the most likely antecedent. This is all a fictional example, by the way. Or maybe it's a new entity, right? Maybe it refers to something new altogether. Now, how are we going to get this notion of entity predictability out of this neural network model? We're going to mask the pronoun. And then we're going to ask the model, okay, can you tell us now who are the most likely antecedents? You only know that there will be a mentioning expression, but not which expression it is. And then the numbers change, so now maybe it's a bit more uncertain, but still it considers the subject antecedent to be quite likely, because that's how language normally works. We try to build a story about the subject. And then by comparing the probability assigned to the correct antecedent when it saw the pronoun, we compare that to the probability assigned to the correct antecedent when the pronoun was masked. And we see that when the pronoun is masked, sorry, I should rephrase it. When the referring expression was masked, if originally it was a pronoun, then it would have already guessed the correct antecedent with some probability. Whereas if the original mention had been a name or a determiner plus a noun, then the probability assigned to the correct referent without seeing the mention was lower. I realize I'm going quite fast. I hope just to give you an impression of the kind of stuff we do. So this seems to suggest that, yes, when we use a pronoun, the correct antecedent was already quite likely to be the antecedent, regardless of the mentioning expression, and more likely than if we use the more complete noun phrase, which seems to corroborate this initial hypothesis. Example 4. This is work by Jonuts, another PhD student in the project, in the group, together with Tomasz Mikolov and Erman Kruszewski. And I'm just going to show you 2 pictures from the paper that they wrote about this. So this is a computer model that's first exposed to French, and then it's exposed to Spanish, and then it's exposed to French again. And so it's switching between languages. And this graph tells you how good is it at that language. And you see that lower is better. So basically the graph shows how bad is it at a language, right? How many errors does it make? And it becomes better and better and better at French, and then you switch to a different language, and it's horrible at Spanish, and it's become better and better, and so on. And so what they did is they kind of invented this sort of task and looked at the behavior of different neural network models. How well can they adapt when you have this sort of code switching going on? This jump back is called catastrophic forgetting, because they used to be quite good at French, but then being exposed to a different language, they forgot all about it, which is not normally how, for instance, bilingual children grow up, right? Something else that's quite interesting, another figure from their paper, is that if you then look at, so these computer models, they use different parts for different languages, that kind of emerges from the structure they use. And then you can compare the different parts they use for different languages and see how similar are they. And that allowed them to say that, so these are sort of correlations. Of course, the part of the model that does German correlates perfectly with the part of the model that does German. It correlates a bit less with the part of the model that does English, and even less for French and Spanish and Czech. And so you can construct a kind of language hierarchy by looking at what this model is doing when it is trying to learn these languages. Compositionality is a topic that many of us also find interesting. And this project is by our PhD Roberto with the senior researcher Marco Baroni. If you teach a neural network what jump means and what run twice means, can it then also jump twice? Or can it interpret jump twice? And here's a table. Let's see what it means. They compare two different types of AI models. Three. LSTM, GRU, and CNN. Doesn't really matter what they are. And in the left column, they presented the model, they trained the model with sentences like jump twice and then run right and then walk left, sentences of this kind. And in this column, they just had random sentences according to this sort of toy grammar. And then it was tested on another random data set, but none of the sentences from the training set were used in the testing set. So it was able to generalize with 100% accuracy to the novel sentences when it was trained on a sort of arbitrary mix of sentences generated according to certain grammar. This column shows you what happens if you restrict the training data. If you don't train it on all sort of random sort of structures, but only sentences where the word jump only occurs on its own. So you're never going to have jump around or jump right or jump left. It's always only jump. Can it then generalize to constructions where jump does occur in this larger compound, like jump right or jump twice? And it's not as good. So even though it has seen run twice and it has seen jump, it has no idea what jump twice means. And this is a similarly restricted data set where it performs even a bit worse. But the details don't matter, I say, but actually I just forgot them. So this example and the last couple of examples illustrate how you can use artificial languages or artificial models, computer models. This illustrates how you can use artificial languages to probe neural networks. So you have a neural network that is very good at processing human language, and then you feed it a toy language that is restricted in certain ways. And then you can investigate, what does it learn? Can it still do as well as it used to? And this is a way of using artificial intelligence techniques as a sort of toy human again, with which you can experiment. You couldn't take a baby and decide, let's only tell it jump on its own and never in a compound sentence, right? You can't do that with a human baby, but you can do it with a neural network. And the hope is, of course, that we learn something that does generalize to the human domain again. I think this is the last example. This is by our PhD student, Lucas. And they're interested in, well, can neural networks generalize? And in a way, the previous example is also about generalization, right? But it's more about generalization in a compositional way. This is about generalization in the domain of negative polarity items. In particular, do neural networks acquire a concept of negative polarity item and their licensing contexts? I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with negative polarity items, but these are things that can occur, for instance, in the scope of a negation, or in downward entailing contexts, or in questions, or in the restrictor of a universal quantifier. There are a couple of environments that allow it, and many that don't. And what they did, let's see, they did many things, but this is just one image that I liked from the paper. Here we see different possible contexts that could license a negative polarity item. On the horizontal axis, this is an exponential or a logarithmic scale, beware, so this is a lot bigger than this. You have the number of occurrences of this type of context per 100,000 sentences. So that's like the frequency of that type of context in some natural language data set. On the vertical axis, it has the number of instances the computer model has to see before it can do these kinds of contexts quite well. So how often do you need to expose it to an adverb before it understands that it licenses negative polarity items? It turns out to be maybe around 400 cases. So it needs to see 400 examples of a particular adverb to understand whether it licenses negative polarity items. And they find this sort of curve where the more frequent a construction is, the more data of it the model needs to really understand it. Or the less frequent it is, the fewer items it needs for it to learn it. And that's kind of a paradoxical result. You would expect the less frequent things to maybe be harder or something. But they explain this in terms of transfer of knowledge. So by being exposed to these things a lot, they can use that knowledge to then also acquire the less frequent licensing contexts much more quickly. And so they take this as potential evidence that the model acquires this concept of, oh yeah, you see my nose. It acquires this concept of a negative polarity item licensing context. And I'll end with this slide. So, thanks.